If you press play, you're watching Globalize TV. We are sitting here backstage at Parklife with Caroline from Chairlift. How are you?
Great, thank you.
Well, a very warm welcome down to Adelaide in South Australia, the dirty South. How do you feel being here so far?
I feel excited. The weather is perfect here today. We were last here in January to play for Laneways, and it was beautiful, so I'm anticipating a good show.
That was your first tour of Australia?
That was actually our second. We were here for Falls Fest on our first record.
Oh, fantastic. And so at Falls, how did you find the crowd responding to you, and at Laneway as well?
Amazing. I mean, Laneway was kind of a really important moment for us because our second record came out while we were on the plane on the way to Laneways, and so that was the first show we played on our new record, and it was really emotional, I guess, because Triple J had some of the songs in advance and had been playing them, and so to have the album come out and play this huge festival in Australia and have people singing along just made me want to cry. It was so beautiful.
So your current haunt is Brooklyn. That for people in Adelaide, Brooklyn's like this big magical place with amazing bands like MGMT and the likes all coming out of there. What makes bands like yourselves move to Brooklyn?
I think it's other people. I mean, it's an age-old story, like cheaper rent, artists come in, build a community, rent goes up, they move somewhere else, blah, blah, blah. But there really is a nice community, especially in Greenpoint. Everyone kind of jokes that like the fans live in Williamsburg and the bands live in Greenpoint. It's like a Polish neighborhood that's really quiet and a little dingy but charming. So it's kind of the perfect place. There's a lot of rehearsal spaces and music shops. It's kind of perfect. Have
you got any sort of bands you play gigs with in Brooklyn regularly or friends with?
I mean, we've been touring for so long this year that I wish I could say that. But we definitely do have a bunch of kind of members of a certain scene. Violins, Ice Choir, Class Actress, Neon Indian, MGMT. Man, who else? Dive, Beach Fossils. If I wasn't so tired, I'd be like, but.
See, that just sounds like music heaven. As soon as you said Neon Indian.
We actually kidnapped Neon Indian's keyboard player. I wanted to tell you, because this is what is going to make our set much different today than it was in Laneway, is that we've stolen Leanne. I mean, in a polite way. We've borrowed her for this tour, and she's playing with us. So that's freed me up to actually just be able to only sing. So I can move around a lot more and like enjoy the audience more than I could before.
So Alan was okay with this?
Yeah, I actually I went out for drinks with Alan and got his blessing first. I didn't want to throw them off anything. That's not cool.
So you mentioned moving around the stage. Are you going to maybe experiment with a bit of dance with your sets moving forward, or?
Well, I've kind of been really against the idea of live choreography, at least for this album. I really like the idea of choreographing videos, but I think live, if it's choreographed, then it's kind of canned. I like it to be spontaneous. So if I'm tired and I'm in a bad mood, I'll wear heels and I'll just plant myself there and just sing, But then if I'm in a really good mood and feeling really electric, I'll wear flats and I'll just scoot around. And I just like people to be able to know that what they're seeing has never happened before. It's not like I do the same, okay, well, here's the part where she goes, brr, 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 it's all very impulsive.
So your song "I Belong in Your Arms," you did a Japanese version, which I was listening to both, and I like I like it better. It sounds so like it sounds perfect. Did you have trouble singing in Japanese?
I mean, a little bit. I actually lived there when I was a kid, when I was really little, so the accent and the sounds are very second nature to me, but yet I can't speak it at all. So a friend of mine who's a translator for a living, she and I met up for 2 days and just looked at the lyrics and picked them apart and tried our best to translate them. It was actually really hard to translate them because a lot of things don't translate. For example, like there's a lyric in it, banana split, and they don't have a word for banana split in Japanese. But even if they did, it's an exotic thing for them. And I wanted it to be something that is like, very like a traditional, like old-fashioned like date food. Like, oh, we're going on a date. What are we going to have together, So we ended up going with kakigori, which is like Japanese shaved ice, which is like a very cute traditional Japanese dessert. And then little things like, how fragmented the lyrics are and almost kind of like nonsensical. We wanted to keep that in Japanese too, and so we abandoned some of the literal translations in favor of other things that reminded us of like what kids would say on the playground. But yeah, once I finally heard the song in Japanese, like once we'd recorded it and everything, I just sat back and I was like, this is how the song was supposed to be. Like it always was this Japanese schoolgirl singing with like pink petals falling around her, like everything's almost too pink. Like the song should feel like over the top pink. And it wasn't until we did it in Japanese that it really felt like that. I think it's because I have a kind of like somewhat masculine way of pronouncing words, and I think in Japanese it just suddenly got like bing! Like,
it's really cutesy, and like just your accenting in that song, like I can't remember the actual specific lyric, but just the way you sing it is just, well, it fits perfectly. I admire that effort. And what sparked that? Like, why Japanese?
I really like translations. I guess it came from the idea of karaoke, because I really appreciate the lyric booklets that come with CDs. And when I was a kid, whenever I bought an album, the first thing I would do is I'd run home and I'd read through the entire album with the booklet. And that way, whenever I'd heard it, I know what the lyrics were, and it could mean a lot to me on those levels. But no one has lyric booklets anymore because no one buys CDs, and I think the iTunes digital booklet is retarded.
Agreed.
I mean, it's like you can't look at it on your iPod. There's just no point. It's like that annoying thing in your iTunes. Sorry, Steve Jobs. So I wanted people to have a way of accessing our lyrics instantly, and I figured, okay, well, we'll just put them on all of our music videos. There's going to be karaoke-style subtitles on all of our videos so that as soon as you hear the song, they're embedded. And I guess I Belong in Your Arms just seemed like such a karaoke song, like to the max, that I just wanted to push it as hard as I could go and do a version in Japanese karaoke, and just do a full homage to the genre. And not in an ironic way. I think a lot of people look at that video and they're like, oh, this is some ironic, like tongue-in-cheek hipster shit, but I'm actually wholeheartedly in love with that kind of shimmery aesthetic. So there it is.
You recorded something in London with Dan Carey, and he recorded the likes of Kylie Minogue and LaRue. Did that sort of guide the sound of the album?
Definitely. Dan came in at a kind of finalizing stage of the record. Patrick and I actually worked on it together as a two-piece in the back room of an antique shop in Brooklyn for about 6 months. And we wrote and produced all the demos ourselves. And then once we essentially had a listenable version of the album, we took those sessions to Dan and opened them up right as they were and just kept working on them. So pretty much all the electronics on the album are from us in Brooklyn that we'd done in advance, and then all the vocals and drums and bass were re-recorded with Dan in London, which is kind of perfect for him because he's a real texture freak. Like, I really see Dan like an amplifier with the distortion cranked up all the way. Like, he just likes everything to be like, you know, so with things like basses and drums and, you know, even little sounds like pianos going through Leslie, like that's perfect for Dan because he just makes everything like.
What are future plans for Chairlift? What can your fans expect to see in the future?
Well, we're going to finish the year out touring. We're leaving for Japan tomorrow night, which I'm excited about. And then after Japan, we go back to the East Coast and do a brief tour at the XX. And then we have a big show at PS1 MoMA Art Museum in New York in October. And then go to Paris for Pitchfork Festival, and then back down to Miami for Art Basel. And then we're done. We have Christmas, and then new stuff.
Well, it's so great to have you here, Caroline, and we love you coming down whenever you play here. So we look forward to you when you come down next time. Thank you very much.
Amazing. Thank you.
You're watching Globalize TV. I'm Jonathan Hyde.
Globalize TV.